And then jumping into the topic that most people, are here for and kind of what's been going on. As the headline reads, Deuce Knight is going to Auburn. So he is locked in a visit. He's going to go to Auburn again. This isn't his first visit. This will be his third or fourth visit, second visit that I believe his parents will be accompanying him on. And he's going down there for the home opener against Alabama State or something like that on August 31st. This is why that's bad news for Notre Dame. First of all, it's bad news he's going. It's even worse news that he's going week one, because he's going to be on Auburn's campus focused on the visit. And I mean, he's not going to completely ignore the Texas A&M game, but he's not going to be as locked in. He's not going to be watching it as intently as he would have been had he not been on this visit. And so in all likelihood, from everybody I've heard from, everybody believes this at this point, is that Deuce Knight will flip to Auburn shortly after the visit. So he's going on Saturday for the game. I don't think he'll flip Sunday, but I think early the following week he could flip. And I think that's going to be kind of how it plays out from here. I think Notre Dame really needed to try to get him either to come to the A&M game or get him on campus right before or something to try to keep their name in the conversation. But I have been on the side of it's okay. Let's wait this out. Let's wait and see. But this visit is I think the final nail in the coffin.
Well, when it comes to this, I'm not tooting the own horn on this, but we've been ahead of this. We were on this in June? The beginning of June is when
Something
we
like that, yeah.
first reported this.
Yeah.
The Notre Dame fans can say he's not decommitted yet. It's just a matter of time before this happens.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to tell people this. Hopefully we have the smart Notre Dame fans listening today that you can go back and watch. I believe it was June 6th. Go back and watch that show. We may not have gotten the school right, and Carter didn't believe me. He was with everybody else at that point and says, "Man, I don't know. Do you want to report this?" And we even sat on it a week.
Yeah, we did.
Before we reported it,
mm-hmm.
And you could sit there and say all you want and say NIL this, NIL that, but try to get from Mississippi to South Bend opposed to getting to Auburn.
Yeah.
Just check it out.
I mean, and I think the location has something to do with it. I think ultimately what it comes down to is the reputation of playing SEC football and their capability of putting big time players into the league at every position, but specifically quarterback as well. On top of that, I think, and what's interesting, and what I think is a real problem for Notre Dame and something they need to look at as a coaching staff and as a program is Auburn didn't recruit Deuce very heavily until a couple months ago. Like when we started reporting that he might decommit, Auburn wasn't even that heavy on him. He's their third choice at quarterback in this class. So they lost out on their top two choices and then started recruiting him. And he was already committed to Notre Dame.
And, they came in late. And, that's kind of how it is.
Yep.
The SEC recruiting. They'll either have their quarterback up front, first couple weeks of it, or they slow play it and then it's a signing day issue.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a bad look for Notre Dame, and it's kind of becoming
the norm,
a bit of a trend where they get these kids that commit early, and then they can't keep them, and they end up flipping to these SEC schools or whoever it is, or Michigan in the case of Ivan Taylor, and it looks bad because Freeman's the best recruiter Notre Dame's ever had, is what I'm told. And I don't disagree. I think Brian Kelly struggled with this as well. I mean, not so much because the NIL wasn't as big of a thing back then, And obviously Charlie Weiss and Tyrone Willingham, some of the other guys struggled to put together big classes, but Charlie Weiss had a couple top 5 classes. But Marcus Freeman is by all reports, by inside Notre Dame, the beat and everything like that, but also nationally, he's very well respected as one of the best recruiters in the nation. And I'm told that money is no issue, that Notre Dame has all this money for their NIL deals and everything like that. And it's like, either you're having a problem identifying the guys that you need to identify that are going to come to Notre Dame, or you're having a problem closing them because you're not as good at recruiting as you think you are, or you actually don't have the money that you think you do to offer these guys. Now, I don't think money plays a role in this one at all. Everything I've read, everything I've been told is that Auburn offered Deuce the same NIL package that they offered the kid that they lost to Texas, because he was going to flip from Texas to Auburn. Texas matched the offer and he went to Texas. Or, I mean, he hasn't signed yet, so who knows. But they offered him that same one, and I was told Notre Dame matched it, and that it's not a money thing. And so if it's not a money thing, then it's a recruiting thing. And you aren't developing the relationships you think you are with these kids. You aren't identifying kids who will actually commit and go to your program. It's becoming a major issue, because not only are you missing out on high-level athletes and prospects that could change your program, but you're wasting a ton of time and resources recruiting these kids, and you're missing out on other kids that you could have gotten. So now when they lose Deuce Knight, hopefully it's sooner rather than later, first of all, because if this is a signing day flip, you're screwed. There's no, you can't go get a 3-star quarterback that might be okay. They already signed their letter. They're done. But I looked at who they're looking at to replace Deuce Knight if he were to flip, and it's a 3-star that's committed to Washington and another 3-star that's committed to like Hawaii or something like that. And it's like, man, there were so many better options out there if you didn't waste all this time with Deuce Knight, if you had known early on that you weren't going to get him. But it is what it is. You just can't keep wasting resources on kids that aren't going to commit to your program.
Well, it's you want to come down to it. You recruit the kid for 18 months to 2 years, and you're going to lose this kid, and then whenever you lose the kid, it's a crushing blow, because you went from the first recruiting class until you're what, 10, 11?
I think they're 12 right now.
10, 11, 12, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just,
and that's with Deuce Knight as a commit, by the way.
And yeah, it's
so if they don't replace Deuce Knight with anything of consequence, you're looking at landing outside the top 15.
Yeah, and it's just that's where it's at. And you can talk about other programs that have lost big name kids, but they have log jams like the Ohio State quarterback room. There's log jam there.
When you look at programs that are losing out on big recruits, I'd have to go back and I'd have to study other programs closer, because I obviously pay the most attention to Notre Dame and Ohio State and some of these Midwest programs. But most of the time when programs like Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, most of the time when those programs lose recruits, it's a recruiting battle that they didn't commit to that school. It's not they've been committed to you for 10 months and then they flip. Most of the time. Now, people flip all the time. I understand that. But most of those programs, once they get the commitment, they hold on to it. Very rarely do you see them continuing to lose big-time prospects that are flipping to other schools late in the cycle.
Yeah, and I think for the 2025 cycle, we're getting down to, the fourth quarter started on the 2025 cycle, in my opinion. You got the 12, 13 weeks of the season, and you got to push, and I just don't think that going into it, you're gonna have. If you lose this kid, it's gonna be a blow. And
yeah, I agree. But it is what it is. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it other than get better at recruiting for the next cycle. Like if Deuce Knight's flipping, he's a lost cause. You aren't getting him back. Now maybe he goes down to Auburn for a year, realizes he hates it, and enters the transfer portal and comes to Notre Dame, which is something I've talked about previously.
That's how they got Julian saying. That's how
Yeah,
Ohio State.
these kids are not locked into this program. So just because you lose them now doesn't mean he won't come back later. Hugh Freeze could get fired or leave next year, and then all these people are in the portal. And Deuce Knight's like, damn, I really like Notre Dame. Maybe I should go check that out.
And you know, the what is it, the Noah Ruggles kid? He committed early, and so I think you know, having a gap there in between, you know, maybe if you don't get a quarterback this cycle, it's not that big of a deal because you got CJ Carr coming in, and you know, you got the Ruggles kid coming in after him,
Grubbs, right?
Or Grubbs, sorry. It's just, you know, sometimes maybe two things can be true. Maybe Auburn gets their guy and Notre Dame gets their guy. So that's just the way it goes sometimes, and you're gonna have guys in the portal too.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm not saying this is a death blow or anything. It's just concerning from a high school recruiting perspective. It's not going to be a death blow to the program. You can absolutely overcome it. You can absolutely replace Deuce Knight with players that have you know, skill set that's maybe similar, either, you know, however you do it. But the lifeblood of college football is still high school recruiting. Now you can do that, and you can complement that with the transfer portal and things like that. But you need to be able to land some of these big time kids out of high school. Otherwise, you're never going to turn the program into what I think Marcus Freeman wants the program to be, which is they want to be mentioned in the same vein as Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. And right now they're not. And that's they shouldn't be. There's only 3 programs in the country that should be, and I just named them. But if you want to get into that echelon, you're not going to do that just in the transfer portal.
Right. And you know, it just takes, you know, building long-term success and things of that consequence and making the playoff. Yeah. It's just, you know, you gotta do something in the playoff. You gotta make the playoff. You got Texas A&M. The whole college football world is watching this game, and this is no bigger opportunity for Marcus Freeman. And it's a boom or a bust. If you go out there, you lay an egg, it's not gonna be perceived well. So
I think final thoughts on this, and then we get out of here. I know we're going a little late tonight, but really, there's 3 things you need to do to change the narrative and to change the narrative in recruiting. And that is, number 1, beat Texas A&M week 1. Go into an SEC school, beat them. Boom. That's checks off a box. Make the college football playoff and actually make some noise. You know, you're going to have to play that first round. You're not getting a bye. So win that first round game for sure. Hopefully win a second round game. But even if you don't win that first round game, that gets the monkey off your back of, oh, they can make the playoffs, but they get blown out every time. And then put kids in the league offensively, because they put defensive players in the league all the time. They put O-linemen in the league all the time, but put a wide receiver in the league, put a quarterback in the league. Let Riley Leonard come out and have a year and go be a late first, early second round pick. Now you can start selling these kids on something other than, dude, we got Mike Denbrock. He's going to change everything. Watch. Now we can be like, dude, you could come in and do what Riley Leonard did. Play in our system for 3 years instead of his 1, and you might be a top 10 pick instead of a late first, early second pick. And you can start selling these things to these kids. But those are the 3 things you have to do this year. You have to beat A&M week 1 to get an SEC win. You have to make the college football playoff, and you have to win a game. And then obviously put kids in the league. And so Riley Leonard, that's your best bet right now. Get him to be an NFL level quarterback that he gets drafted. And I don't want him drafted in the 6th round. I need day 1 or day 2.